Hi, my name's Leon.
My name's Reece Naylon.
My name's Jacob.
My name's Leighton.
My athlete is a professional rugby player called Reece Walsh. He plays for the Brisbane Broncos and his main position is fullback. He's a 23-year-old and he's been playing rugby league since he was very young. And we see that early specialisation has had a massive impact on being able for him to succeed. And according to Tenneman 2006, he states that adaptation to physically and emotionally demanding conditions, the role of deliberate practice, which overall allowed him to make his debut at 18 for New Zealand Warriors.
Yeah, so mine's a 23 professional football player. He primarily plays on the left wing for Man City. He's 173 centimetres tall, weighs approximately 68 kilograms, and he's Christian faith. He was born in Belgium, but his family is from the Ghanaian roots. My athlete's recently picked up a leg injury and is estimated to be out for 2 to 3 weeks.
So in my most previous SWOT analysis, I did find many weaknesses in my 23-year-old male footballer, and the key internal factors on why he hasn't been performing lately. Most of these weaknesses came from his lack of consistency and injuries, and these factors not only impede on his personal development but also affects his career. This is why it's very crucial to get a plan and strategy on how to improve his weaknesses.
Well, my SWOT analysis was on a 14-year-old central defender who is at the academy set up at Manchester City. The main weaknesses that I found was muscle imbalance and difference in strength in a left leg compared to a right leg, as well as the fact that she loses concentration quite a bit, which is usually due to external factors instead of internal factors, such as the opposition level, or say they're winning like 6-0 and she loses concentration quite a bit. But yeah, I'm going to try and make sure that all these weaknesses are improved.
Yeah, so I'll go to my technical weaknesses, if that's alright with you lot. I didn't really pick up many in his game, to be fair, because he is quite a top athlete, but I want to keep building on the fundamental skills because I feel like that's quite important for a player even at the top level. I feel like working on the fundamental stuff is kind of the best thing to do. I want to be able to keep him building and be able to complete these skills consistently, because the more consistent you can do these, the better player you're going to get, really. Then I got a bit of research. Kawinski 2015, he states that the requirements for the reliability of sports techniques and the tactical skills of an athlete have increased dramatically. So he's basically saying these technical skills and making sure you can get the basic techniques right. It helps you become a lot more consistent player, to be fair.
Yeah, so with that reference there, it actually relates to what I'm talking about now with my player. He's struggling to find consistency, scoring goals and assists. So that relates back to the basics of getting his passing and shooting right to his players. And in my SWOT, I found that he wasn't scoring enough goals and assists due to the player that he's overtaken. So what I'm going to try and do is make him play a more inverted position. But to do this, like you mentioned with the fundamental skills, you have to sharpen his decision making with his passing and his shooting and time it right. Therefore, his position, it's important to keep the ball in possession rather than wasting chance in the final third. Football at the minute is more possession based. I found about this according to an article from Ivan Barago 2024. And compared it to the 2019 edition. Ball sessions were on average 13.5% longer. However, Doku is so good at taking on players, it's important that aspect doesn't get taken away from him. So I still want him to take on players rather than just passing the ball, doing two-touch football. I do want him to keep that main skill that he's got, which is taking on players. And I found out from Williams et al. To have such attention should be focused on aspects of the environment relevant for one's actions, which relates to Doku's best ability, which is his dribbling. And this in contrast to the Ivan Barago reference.
It's like I was saying as well, it does really link quite close, doesn't it, really? Because getting them fundamental skills right, but also being able to use the skills that he's better than a lot of players are.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to enhance the player in the right way, and if that's his best skill, then you've got to focus on that.
So do you think then, if he just uses the same skills over and over again, will he keep beating the same players, or do you think he'd have to like mix it up a bit?
I think he has to adapt, definitely, and this is what I'm talking about here, how his consistency isn't matching up in games. Like some games he'll play amazing, score a goal, get an assist, but then others he'll struggle. So that is why I want to play him more inverted, to see if when he's inside he can get more shots off, and he's closer to his striker as well then, so hopefully that'll
allows him to build on.
Yeah,
It allows him to use, like what you were saying, like the being able to take someone on, be able to use that, but also being able to cut inside and then use that striker as a support man as well, instead of making it just 1v1, potentially make like 2v1.
Exactly. So yeah, that's all I found on.
Well, I was reading up on a thing about, like, you know how you talk about dribbling, so he could improve his footwork and agility. Same with my footballer, he could like needs to improve his agility and footwork. So I was thinking of adding in neuromuscular training, and I've read some Alvarez Serrano 2023. It says neuromuscular training involves a series of functionally focused exercises that addresses aspects such as postural stability, sensory perception and muscle strengthening, and other drills like agility drills, like ladder drills, cone drills, to help his footwork and his agility.
Not like be able to adapt in like a game situation, if you know what I mean. So being able to like take the man on.
Yeah, so jumping on that, were you going to do any ball work with him as well?
No, I haven't actually done anything about ball work.
Yeah, because in mine, all I'm going to do is an attack v defence drill, which does involve taking someone on, like you said, with dribbling, and can improve their agility and sharpening decision making in the final third.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, my one is kind of the opposite to all of yours, considering yours are attackers and focusing on dribbling. Obviously, my player is a central defender, so, and due to the fact that Manchester City, they try and develop from a young age, building up from the back. I noticed one of their technical weaknesses is using their weaker foot to either do some long balls or even just short 5-yard passes. But a study that I found from Chen and Yang in 2020, it's shown that just the constant repetitive nature of constantly passing with your left foot, even though it might be like a closed skill where it's just passing it there in and out, that is the best way of improving that. However, with another study compared on Williams in 2008, it shows the use of like different factors that can affect it. So trying to get it to where they're scanning and anticipating, and they're able to make fast decision making. So that one's more open, where it's more, and that's more game realistic, as you're gonna have to scan no matter what during the game before you get the ball, and they're trying to make that decision making autonomous, so that she doesn't have to think about it. So, however, I do think using that, I'm gonna do some one-to-one sessions with her to make sure, and using both of them studies as making sure that it's repetitive and getting it knocked down, make sure that she's comfortable doing that. However, I can't just use that study because that's closed. So I want to use the other one as well, which is open, to make sure that it's getting realistic.
Like added on to that, like obviously with my play, a bit different being a rugby player, but could you not potentially like use what I was saying, like potentially, like I know you're doing it with the weak foot and stuff, like building them fundamentals, so I feel like that probably, for me anyway, that was like the best thing that worked for me, just building on them fundamentals and getting, because it's a bit different, because you're not using much, you passing with your feet, passing with your hands, but I feel like, like you were saying, like using that left foot, using it on a more consistent basis and just using it instead of just like, oh no, I've got to use my left foot, like try and make it the most natural
I
thing
agree,
possible.
I agree, because getting the fundamentals down is the main thing before you can go into something more complex. And obviously, passing with your left foot is a major fundamental in football as well.
It's especially at the top level as well, really. Being in the academy, you've got to be able to adapt into them situations, because you potentially could have to get onto the left foot as well.
Trying to make the uncomfortable comfortable at the same time.
Alright, moving on. I'm going to move on to tactical, lads, if that's alright. So for me, obviously, different to you three as a football player. My player was obviously a rugby player. And rugby league for me requires a lot of mental focus, tactical thinking, because it's such a quick game, and you can't let outsider things and potentially change the game. And that's what I found when I played Reece Walsh. He was struggling a lot with critiques from the media, like, because obviously he's single dad. He's done a lot of things that is very, in my opinion, a bit weird, but that's just the person he is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I saw, like, in some games in training, he put his tactical strength at risk, and he was really struggling to build up form and stuff like that. And then I got a bit of research from Anderson 2012. The media portrays athletes images on and off the field, and they discuss their performance on the field of play. This exposure and scrutiny will have an impact on the athletes themselves. This is, like I was saying, he's been struggling in training, so I built on a lot of things for him to try and stay off the media and just focus on working on, like, saying his fundamentals to give him a bit of boost, a bit of confidence. What I've found is it links a lot with my tactical elements as well. Like, I've used my SWOT and my 4-corner model, and I want to keep building on the mental aspects of his game to make sure his head's there in the game as well. Because if his head's not there really in rugby, it could potentially be a really long 80 minutes for him.
So, you know, with your telling them obviously to try and keep them off the media, obviously you're not with them 24/7. How are you going to try and monitor it?
So for me, like you were saying, then I've set up something on his phone. It's like a little app, and it can limit your screen time. So it's like, obviously he's going to be on it, but one of the main things was that, like, limiting his screen time as well, but also, like, getting rid of these apps like the Instagrams and stuff like that, because you do get, although he's like an outstanding player, he does get a lot of hate for it. And that's where I've said to him, like, listen, let's focus on playing, let's not focus on what other people think, focus on how good you actually are, and then just keep building. So that's the main way I went about it, to be fair.
Well, yeah, one of my main weaknesses was about, like, inconsistency and how it affects his, like, mental health. So it's kind of linking to yours.
Yeah, because I feel like that's the consistency, because of the media scrutiny. Really, he's so lackadaisical. You don't really know how well he's going to play until the day, really.
Well, my footballer, he's been through it. Like, he started off at, like, a very young age, thinking he was going to be like the next Messi.
Yeah.
But then injuries and inconsistency let him down. Like, it will affect mental health, like self-doubt and anxiety, which can lead to, like, obviously before a game you can get a lot of anxiety through, like, the fans and all the media. So I was thinking about putting him onto, like, sports psychology. So I read something on Sing 2010. Sports psychology is defined as the scientific study of human behaviour in sports and the practical application of this knowledge. Sports psychology as a field is devoted not only to expand the scientific understanding of human behaviour. So I was going to get him on that. I was also going to get him on some goal setting, which can help with the lack of inconsistency, because if he sees some goals, like some success, he can, like, see it, and then he might get the confidence boost to work harder in training and work harder in games, and then build himself back up to, like, the top level.
Goal setting's a really good one because it gives him a time limit as well.
Yeah.
It gives him a time.
I talk about that a lot in my mental side, but yeah, like goal setting, I feel like for a player anyway, setting specific goals is such a key factor, because you want to go and reach them goals by the end of the season. And if you don't reach them, you're like, oh, I'm not going to play well this year. So,
how would you say, like, if you do set a goal to him, how would you like get him into a meeting with you, or would you try and make it as less, like, professional and less, like, robotic as possible?
I think I'd, like, meet up with him, decide a few things, not go too far, like, straight away, set little goal settings, and then when he's building up on that and building his confidence up, then that's when we reach, like, the highest level of, like, goal setting.
I feel like for me, like, I found, like, the goal setting, I feel like doing it in such more of a relaxed environment instead of making it like, right, you're meeting me at this time in the office. It's like
Yeah.
making it in an environment where it's just like relaxed, like go for a coffee. I feel like that really helped when
Yeah.
I was doing it with Reece, but I'll talk about that a bit further down
Would
the line.
you take into account his, like, say like you gave him a goal set and he thinks I can't do that at all. Would you take that on board, or would you just say no, you can do it because I believe you can? Or
Yeah, because like I was saying, like in mind with the media and stuff, I feel like you want to go out there and prove people wrong a bit, if you get what I mean, and being able to set a reasonable goal, but then if you can set that reasonable goal and then he exceeds that, it boosts his confidence so much going into like the next season, and then being able to just keep building. I feel like that will really help. That really helped my player anyway. Wish you've got anything to add to that, mate?
Yeah, so a reference by Aranchi et al. 2025 highlights that success in sport strongly tied to athletes is motivation, the self-efficacy, the self-confidence, and the goal setting, like you mentioned before, Jacob. So it's definitely shown recently as well in 2025 that it's still very effective for athletes.
I also read on some Healy et al. 2018. Within sporting context, goal setting is a commonly used technique that can lead to enhanced performance. Recommendations for goal setting have been widely embraced in sport and performance settings by researchers, practitioners, athletes and coaches.
I feel like that's quite that's a really good reference for me. I'm going to take that on board and use it for my players. I feel like it can really help get them back into that normal state of mind, to be fair. And I feel like that will really help my players.
Yeah, the reference I found, I've applied it to a drill that I do every session, which is a 5v5. It could be attack versus defence or a mix of both. And it just brings out a psychological battle between the two groups.
Yeah.
And it reveals the leaders in the group, the ones that are more quiet, and that for me shows who I need to focus on. And Doku is more one of them quiet people. He's at a younger age, and one of the weaknesses I found in the SWAT was his mental maturity and resilience.
Yeah.
As a younger athlete, he kind of needs to improve on that. So putting him in these small environments with the leaders lets him communicate more and learn off them.
do you think when putting them within the leaders, let's say with you, obviously with Doc who's at Man City,
Yeah.
let's say you put him with, say, Ruben Dias and Donnarumma in the same team. Obviously they're massive leaders and they want to like scream at players and all that.
Yeah.
But if you put him up with, I don't know, say like Bernardo Silva, who's less of a talker and more of showing my technical ability and leading by like performances, how, like what type of leader do you think he would be?
So I think at the minute Dockie's more with his performances, he's very quiet, but you know when he's on the ball he can produce something for your team. So I would put him with more the technical players at the minute, because he's been with the leaders like you mentioned, Donnarumma and Diaz for so long now, he's been at the club for a while. I want to put him in an environment where he's a bit more uncomfortable to see if I can bring that out of him.
Yeah.
When he's,
I feel like that links very close to mine. My play's he's only 23 years old and he's still maturing and using, like you're saying with the maturity. I feel like being able to get with the more experienced players, for me anyway, because I already know how much of a top player he is. I know what he can do, like represent his country in the Ashes for me. And like you were saying, I feel like with me, I feel like building him with the leaders instead of like maturing him as a leader instead of just developing his performance. I feel like that'll be a massive help for me. So thanks for that, fellas. Do you want to move on to mental weaknesses?
Yeah, I've got a bit on that now.
Yeah,
on the social aspect of like footballers and rugby players' lives, I found a reference by Jossie et al., which suggests mental resilience plays a critical role in enhancing an athletic performance and facilitating recovery from sports injuries. So like you say with your guy who's getting injured a lot, Dockie's injury in a minute, so I think it's critical that I support him through that recovery process and make sure that he's mentally well, not just physically, because being injured is such a mental battle as well as physical.
I feel like as well for a young player it is massive because it takes like a massive toll on the development, because obviously what old Dockie would you say?
He's 23.
Yeah, same as me, so it feels like he played. Because Reece Walsh, he was out with the injury, he was out for 3 months, 3-4 months, and that really knocked him back a bit. And then coming back from that injury, it's a lot harder than you think. But obviously, I've never experienced it, but I feel like it would be a lot more difficult, and you've got to be there to support them through all that.
Yeah, just on that, my athlete she broke her wrist just before a trip before she was about to go on a trip to Bilbao to play, and obviously missed out on playing in that trip because of the injury. And obviously she's ended up, luckily she was lucky enough to still go to it. However, she was sat in like the stands and she was constantly messaging her friends going like, well, I just want to play. But it's important to try and, like as you were saying, get behind the player and trying to support them, to let them know that they aren't alone when it comes to being injured and being on the sidelines.
Going from expanding on Reece's point, I use something called psychological skills training. So that was more picking up on the mental skills instead of developing his performance skills. So for me, I found it was a massive positive and benefit to his game, because he would be able to like block out the noise from like the media, as I was saying, and it's obviously benefited his tactical game as well, because it all just links together. And I've got a few like different techniques that I use with it. So concentration and focus, performance relevant focus, and automatic physical movements, both of which are beneficial for concentration and his performance. And that was by Bas et al. 2010. And then I also had relaxation, so more on a physical side instead of a mental, but it's just coping with competitive anxiety. So like a couple of hours before the game, it always is quite stressful. Whereas the mental, whereas using physical, he would be able to cope with like everyday anxiety. So that was by David et al. 2013. As well, this was more on a game day for me. I got him doing like a lot of self-talk, so like speaking to himself just before a game, and being able to like motivate yourself and instruct yourself and like, come on, I can do this.
Yeah, that works with all athletes that as well, because obviously it's not my player, but I know Anthony Gordon as well, he's talked about how self-talk massively improved his form, so that's definitely something I could use for my athlete.
Have you got anything to add?
Well, my player, when he was in his peak, tore his meniscus, put him out for 306 days, basically at the start of his career, which majorly set him back, because when he came back he wasn't where he was at. He's been on a lot of loans now, still on loan, trying to find his form. And I actually read something, you know how you talk about like it can massively affect you and lower your confidence. So I read something on Gromset et al. 2024. Injuries can lower confidence, increase anxiety, and cause fear of re-injury, affecting performance. And that's happened a lot to my athlete, obviously, with him going on loan and not making his way back into his parent club where he was at.
Yeah. I feel like I did on that bearings for me anyway, like Lincoln's delay in the point, because like with his playing, being sat on the side, I feel like it can really do play a massive impact on the moment. I'd say more the mental side of the game, really, because you're waiting for so long and you're not really getting involved in the training, you're just there on your own with the S&C coaches and stuff like that. So I feel like, I do agree with a lot of the things you were saying.
Luckily, due to all like the rehab that she did end up doing on her wrist and all like the mental side of it, she was able to like provide that mental block when it comes to it during the game, and not being able to like not afraid that it'll happen again. But anyway, on my a mental side of the weakness that I identified like at the start, saying about the concentration lasting the whole 80 minutes without say drifting off and like being away with the fairies, really. But yeah, I've got 3 things that I wanted to, like 3 methods that I want to try and promote to her, is saying using pre-performance routines. So a research by Cosman 2010 showed that like routines that help athletes enter an optimal state of mind. So if she's doing the same thing over and over and over again, she's able to be prepared and ready and focused for the entire game. Another one is using different trigger words or phrases. So Nadef's attention control theory shows that athletes shift a lot from internal and external focus. So even if it's some short, fast, like sharp words such as shape, reset, or focus, or anything that helps her out, it'll allow her to reduce any risk of any overthinking that happens. Say the opponent's, it's all in their half, and she's just marking the striker. Could be just overthinking everything impossible. And obviously developing different scanning habits, because if she switches off even for the slightest second at that level, and she's not checked her shoulders, scanned like reading the game as focused he was in the like 70 minutes in the last 10 minutes, that he can lose the game because of the quality of the different things. So yeah, as a coach, I want to get him familiarised with all of these different methods and either let her choose one or use different ones to help her out.
Reece, do you want to put us onto physical?
Yeah, so yeah, like you said with the physical there, whilst we were talking about all the mental side and the injury, it kind of relates to my physical weakness, which obviously is Doku's injury list. So at the minute I've got him on a rehabilitation program, which consists of progressive agility and trunk stabilisation exercises, because I found this is more effective emphasising his isolated hamstring stretching and strengthening, preventing injury reoccurrence in athletes suffering an acute hamstring strain. That was by Sherry et al. 2004. I think another factor we have to take into consideration is when he's not injured, still have to condition the other muscles as well, because being out so long, all the other muscles haven't been trained. It's important to make sure they're still being conditioned appropriately. Yeah, have you got anything on that, Jacob?
Well, that reference you just mentioned, I had the exact same one, and I was also going to put my athlete on a rehab program, restoring strength, flexibility, stability in all the areas that my athlete thinks he needs to improve. They can also offer high intensity movement drills, which can help his strengthen his legs and getting used to like high intensity, as his parent club is in a league where it's a bit high intensity, not on his low move, it's a bit of a slow intensity, but when he goes back to his parent club, he'll be able to like get back into the flow.
And just adding on that, I feel like with me, just kind of counterbalancing it, for me, obviously, this is my opinion, I feel like rugby is a lot more physically demanding, and because it's always back forward. But for me, I found game-based training was a lot easier for my athlete, because it allows, it can incorporate a lot of the positive physical skills that they already have, but then also benefiting on the physical, the less physical, like the conditioning, because if you're using the game-based, like I found, you're getting that, you're kind of like psyching yourself up already, and you're using that mental side, but then also building on your like performance skills as well.
Yeah, it's like I was mentioning before with Doku, how I do the 5v5 drills. It's so game based that it gets you in that physical condition and the psychological state that you need to be in for them games.
Yeah, and a bit of like research that I found was Gabbett and Tim et al. 2007. Game specific training program that incorporates both physical conditioning and skills training may facilitate a greater transfer of physical skills, physical fitness to competitive performance in a rugby league game. So, like I was saying, being able to adapt the physical and your mental, you can like work into one, and it allows you to psychologically prep yourself for what it's going to look like in a game. Like you're running set plays, you're running your sets, you're running what you do on a certain tackle and things like that. So I feel like for me anyway, instead of just focusing more on the injury side and focusing more on the game-based stuff, for me, I feel like that really benefited my athlete improving.
Yeah, that links back to.
There you go.
Will that happen every session, or just only in just a few sessions?
I feel like for me anyway, like more on the rugby side, I feel like using a bit of game-based stuff every session, I feel like is because it's developing to a certain, like obviously you're watching tapes of other teams, and like you're thinking around what sets do they run, how do they set up, and being able to just use that game-specific stuff, you'll be able to like adapt to like think, all right, we know what set's coming, we know where if they see like a player in a certain play, like certain position on the field, it's like, right, okay, they're running this play, they could be kicking early, so let's set up, let's make sure we've got our shape right, and yeah, just I feel like for me anyway, benefited my play a lot more.
Would you try and throw like a curveball in there and try and do something completely like random, so that if that does end up happening in the game, would you try and make that?
Yeah, I feel like
a decision.
I feel like as well, yeah, like you're saying, being able to like chuck the random stuff in, because you never realistically, like in football and rugby, you never know what's going to happen in a game, and being able to quickly adapt to it and then quickly change the shape and like, right, we've got to do this quickly, we're setting up in this place, we might have a player in the sin bin, so we're down to 12, so we've got to make sure we're all in our defensive shape right, and then just being able to keep working on that. So yeah, thanks, like, I feel like that all the random stuff is good.
That sounds. Nice one, boys.
Should we start?
Cheers.
Yeah.
Do you want to come to a conclusion, yeah?
Yeah, we'll just come to a quick conclusion.
Yeah, so for me, I feel like the most beneficial type of stuff to work on for me was all his mental stuff.
Yeah.
Because obviously, still being young, it's hard to adapt to being in the academy and then
Yeah.
working your way up. Like he turned pro at 18. Like he made his debut for New Zealand Warriors at 18. So being able to adapt quickly and sort of get his mental side right before his performance side was massive for me.
Yeah, same. I'd probably focus on like his mental side, improving his mental health, getting his confidence up, and making him the player he once was.
Yeah, like motivation's a massive part, and that's what I'm going to focus on. With him being out at the minute, he needs to motivate himself to get back to the form that he's in, because he was in such great form before he got injured. So
Yeah. Just linking to that motivation, I need, because my athlete's part of the adolescence group, and only 14. She's got so many social aspects that she wants to do at the same time, so I'm going to try and keep her motivated to stick to the programme and stick to what I want to get her to improve on.
That's right. Thank you, boys.
Nice one, boys.
Nice one.